Hello everyone, welcome to the Cryptoemcee show, and today we have a guest, Eugene Romanenko, and our topic will be about Austrian School of Economics and crypto. Eugene is also known as Cryptoemcee, famous host of the multiple crypto conferences. We met in Kiev many times, we met in Singapore, and also Eugene is known as a specialist on the Austrian School of Economics. So this will be our topic, and firstly I would like to ask, how did you came to the crypto area, crypto industry? Was your interest in the economics the main reason or some other reasons? So please tell about this and a little bit about your background.
Hi everybody, thank you for this possibility to tell the world about the Austrian School of Economics. I'm an economist by background. In 2000 I finished my education at the university, economics degree, and I had realized that I do not understand economics at all. It sounds weird, but it was the same. When I realized that it was a great evil, and I started to search the answers on the questions that were in my head. In 2011 I discovered the Austrian economics, and the interesting thing that I had heard about Austrian economics at the late 90s when I was at the third course of my university. Then when I became a blogger in 2014, I started with quite different topics, sales, consulting, and so on. Then in 13, I first had known about Bitcoin at the end of the year. The interesting thing first, the word Bitcoin, I heard the lecture of Austrian School of Economics. This time I was living in St. Petersburg, and my colleague and the Hayek Institute founder, Pavel Lusanov, the famous Austrian school economist, he's living in St. Petersburg right now. He firstly told me about Bitcoin. I did pay my attention to that. Then in 2017, in the hype time, you do remember this hype time, in the birthday of Pavel Lusanov, I canceled all my current tasks by business and, how to say, dropped down my head at the Bitcoin and crypto topic. All the day I was reading, listening, and then I realized that crypto and the blockchain and Bitcoin are these tools. First time in human history they are able to get the humanity to the era of sound money, real money, honest money, which fiat epoch of 20th century had stolen sound money from the humanity, and the crypto is able to return back humanity to this epoch. And I realized that I want to dedicate myself to promote crypto. I said to myself, wow, I do understand that this thing may return humanity to the sound money epoch, and I want not only be the witness of this epoch, I want to promote as much as I can to make coming to this epoch much more faster than otherwise. That's my story.
Yeah, great. And actually you mentioned sound money. I think interesting to know your opinion. That's the main notion which connects Austrian School of Economics and crypto world.
Yes.
Because crypto, it's all about the sound money, hard money, and we can even say real money.
Definitely.
I remember you've been early in this year speaking at the conference here in this city, and you gave a reading list. There was a book which I also read by Saifeddin Amu, Bitcoin Standard, and I actually think that it's a very good book to start for those people who do not have like big background in economics, because it explains the basics of the gold standard, of Bitcoin standard, why Bitcoin is a new standard, and also like some differences it mentions Austrian school, Ludwig von Mises, it mentions Keynes in a negative way. So interesting to know like your reading list, let's say. Let's start about this, because Bitcoin standard, I think it's easy topic for everyone. It's like very easy. You do not have like to have any background in crypto nor in economics. And what are other books which you would recommend to read for those who are interested in economical background of Austrian school and crypto?
This is a very good question. The reading list is very important. You know, me myself, I had read perhaps all the Austrian economics books published in Russian language, and now I do read Austrian economics books published in English. For the beginner who doesn't know anything about Austrian economics, first, here's the phrase Austrian School of Economics, and first he thinks that this is like such a building in Austria where guys are going like a school or a university. Now, the Austrian School of Economics is not the building in Austria. It's not the university physical or physical building. It is, how to say, the trend established in the late 70s of 19th century. You know, the economic theory is very, very young science, very young science. When you try to understand economics, you will have to deal with schools, classical school, Adam Smith, Mel Ricardo, Marxism, like the logical end of classics, Keynesianism, monetarism or Chicago school, and Austrian or marginal school.
Yeah, at that time when Austrian school appeared, there was kind of like big rival or competitor, so-called historical school.
Definitely.
And I think, is it right to say that the founders of Austrian school were Karl Menger and Eugene Romanenko?
Definitely.
Pronounce this well, and maybe you can speak like a little bit on how it started and about like the names.
Well, the beginning of the Austrian school, usually we mention Karl Menger and his Principles of Economics book, published in 1871. So the next year, Austrian School of Economics will celebrate 150 Jubilee. Then Eugene von Bamberg, former Austrian Minister of Finance of Austro-Hungarian Empire, came into the focus in his famous book Capital and Interest, the theory of capital and interest. The fundamental book, if you are interested in the category of the interest or person, if to say in usual words, you need to read Bamberg. Then Mises came, Ludwig von Mises. He turned into economist after having read Karl Menger Principles of Economics, and Ludwig von Mises, born in former Lemberg,
which is in Ukraine.
Lviv, yes, in Ukraine. And then I think all the Ukrainians have to know about Austrian school, because one of the major figures, Ludwig von Mises, was born in the Ukraine, Then Ludwig von Mises is a fundamental figure. I may talk about them. His most famous books are Theory of Money and Credit, or Money and Fiduciary System. Then Human Action, the main treatise of economics. If you need to read one fundamental book in Austrian School of Economics, I recommend reading Human Action, published in 1949 in New York, 70 years ago. And that is the main treatise. Do not read Economics of McConnell LeBrew, do not read Samuels, do not read Keynes, and so on and so forth. Miss wrote dozens of books: liberalism, bureaucracy, socialism, theory and history, and much, much more. Then Murray Rothbard came into the existence, one of the most famous people, most famous student of Mises. They were familiar. Rothbard visited Mises' lecture, and Rothbard was the first anarcho-capitalist, not the first, but the most famous anarcho-capitalist guy, and modern. He died in 1995, and he wrote dozens of books. Robert was a historian. He wrote about the history of United States, the history of monetary system, the history of Great Depression, from the economics. Murray Rothbard wrote the brilliant books of 2 volumes, the history of economics thoughts from the Austrian perspective, where if you are interested in history of economic ideas, do not read anything besides Rothbard book. It exists in English and it exists in Russian language. You may also find it in Russian.
In the text version of this content, we'll add the links. But interesting to ask, let's say, like for the people who are completely not familiar with the topic, is it like Human Action, the one book which you recommend, or some others, maybe like some particular book by Rothbard?
This book I have mentioned, these are 4 fundamental learning of Austrian School of Economics. Then let's switch to the crypto enthusiast. If you do know what crypto is and you want to dive in simply in Austrian School, start with Safety Almost, the Bitcoin standard. It also exists in Russian, a language you may find. Then if you are interested in technical side of Bitcoin, the brilliant book of Founders Antonopoulos. He is the computer guy, but he also mentions Austrian School of Economics. All the most famous Bitcoiners and crypto enthusiasts, they are strictly familiar with Austrian School, not only me. So Anders Antonopoulos, mastering Bitcoin, mastering Ethereum, and even mastering Lightning Network. Our famous friend from Phoenix, Alexander Knip, who's in Kiev right now, he is finishing the translating mastering Lightning Network into the Ukrainian language right now. So such a very famous thing.
Good to know. I hope we'll soon see it published.
So Bitcoin standard of Saving Amos is the brilliant book because it concerns with crypto, it concerns with Austrian economics. And Safety Amos is the Lebanon-based economist, studied in the US, and he's Austrian school economist based. So I may recommend him because he's the guy of correct thoughts, of correct fundament. And he also has YouTube channels, and he also has safety.com website. So very, very clever guy, and I strongly recommend to read and listen. And by the way, he's now preparing the short, popular course named Austrian Economics version, light version and hard version for starters, for the beginners. And by the way, visit Mises.org, the website of Mises Institute in Alabama, US, the most greatest think tank dedicated to Austrian School of Economics in the United States.
Yeah, also I think talking about sound money, we can define, and actually I was firstly I was a little bit surprised why back at the time Austrian school was called Orthodox school of the economy. But this is something like which really continues like from the gold standard, and that the supply of money should be like limited, the money should be hard, it shouldn't be like easy to print it or to inflate. And the other school which is dominant right now, or maybe like 2 different schools. One is like which is coming from Keynes, also we might call it inflationists, and another like Chicago school from Milton Friedman. They are both inflationists, so they are not for the sound money, and also they do not like Bitcoin and crypto. We can remember this Nobel Prize laureate Paul Krugman. He said that Bitcoin is evil. Did you read this? Known
for whom
article?
Bitcoin is evil? For inflationists, for government, of course. The main question is, how much money do we need for economics to work? Inflationists such Keynes or monetarists, so on forth, they say as much economy grows, as much money we need. So we need to print money for economy work well. From the Austrian perspective, this is a big lie, because Austrians answered this question: how much money do we need? Any amount of money will successfully serve to economic states, because all will be regulated by prices. So we do not need to print money, we do not need to create money. And creating money is counterfeiting, it's producing false money, unsound money. 20th century is the era of the worst money that humanity ever had. I personally call fiat money like a territorial monopoly of counterfeiting, because up to 200 countries, or less than 20 countries in the world, every one of them had established its own monopoly to print its own money, which the population of this territory bothered with borders, so-called borders, thinking lines on the map. The population is forced to use this paper, false tokens, government tokens. That's why governments and central banks are totally afraid of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin serves as money, serves good as money, and nobody may force you to use Bitcoin. It's totally voluntary, and nobody may bring more Bitcoin, because its quantity is limited by 21st million by Satoshi Nakamoto. This is a new paradigm. For us, for Austrians, this is not a new paradigm. We do understand that sound money are money, and the money is a tool which serves for three main functions: the medium of exchange, the store of value, and the unit of account. And Bitcoin definitely does well in the function of store value. He still not serves as a unit of account, and he run not very good serves as a medium of exchange, but other cryptocurrencies serve as a medium of exchange, like stable coins, USDT and Tether. That's why the humanity had returned to the epoch of sound money. The epoch of sound money, the era of sound money, returns back on our eyes with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And the power of governments, the power of central banks diminishes, decreases, and they do understand this very well. These guys really well know the real value of these paper fiat tokens, because they may not even print, they may draw them out of thin air just by clicking some.
Yeah, I remember from the book of Mises, there is like very interesting phrase that he said that, like, well, basically Keynes and his approach is like to increase government spending, to increase, like, to force inflation, and this might in a way look like it's helping in the short run, but in the long run it's like very very bad. Like, we know even recently there were like several financial crises, and he said that many people from that Keynesian approach, they think, but we are not interested in the long run, because at the end we all die. Yeah, but the problem is that it also affects that this short run, it's happens sooner than they expected.
Yeah, but in long run, Keynes is like a guy, he's dead already, and we are living in this world, and the world of long run Keynes. And we have the problem, Keynes tried to ban it. He's a lucky guy, and we are not lucky. And we are living in a world of consequences of the Keynesianism, the world of crisis, the permanent crisis, the world of totally increased government debts all over the world of deflating money, the world of robbery, the fiat robbery, because the devaluation of money is the kind of indirect robbery of users by governments. If you are very close to the printing press, of course you will be the fan of Keynesianism, because Keynes say you need to bring more money to stimulate economics. Of course we need to print more money, and if we are printing money out of thin air, we may buy anything.
And in some countries especially, let's say,
definitely
those countries, some people who are in power, they get enriched.
Totally. It is the redistribution of wealth. It's the Cantillon effect. Google, who was Richard Cantillon, lived in 18th century. He said if you print money, the wealth will inevitably redistribute from the users of this money who are forced to do that, and in the end, in the result, they will get false money, and the real wealth, houses, goods, and so on and so forth, will be redistributed to these guys who are first staying the nearest at the printing press. It even logically understandable by the common sense. If you print money out of thin air, you may buy anything, and if anybody isn't able to print money, of course you are the winner. But you are the winner in the robbery game, you're the winner in the fraud game, in counterfeiting game. Is it going to be the winner in this kind of game? Robbery is a crime, counterfeiting is a crime. It's written on criminal law, and the main criminal in the fiat game is government and central bank in any country, whatever this country may know.
In a way, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, they created this redistribution of wealth, because it's like new money. It's like both new money and I can say the orthodox money, because it's basing on everything the best which used to be in the economic history and economics as a science. So that was like, for example, for me, that was a reason why I joined the crypto space, because back in the beginning of 2017, it was a little bit late to join, for Bitcoin wasn't so cheap. But I understood that it's like really a science, because there is math behind it, there are economical principles behind it. And I'm just wondering, and it's interesting to hear your approach, because there are a lot of people who follow like mainstream Keynesian economics, because this is actually the economics which we are studying in universities, in schools.
We are forced to study, it's correctly saying.
There are some people who, in a way, who follow like some other paradigms, like Chicago School. Some people I even follow the Marxist approach, but not so many people following the Austrian school in the academic area. Why do you think is that? And will it change? What are your thoughts?
That's a very painful question, because the answer is simple. In the century of government expansion, of government intervention in economics, they don't want people to know the truth. Governments want people to believe that government's intervention is necessary for economic growth. It is a lie from the Austrian perspective, and only Austrian school tells the truth. It tells government we don't need government to develop economics. Moreover, government is the worst enemy for economics. Its intervention causes very negative consequences.
And also some people, while communicating, I understood that some people, they think that we still that fiat money are in a way still attached to gold. Some people understand it, but the gold standard approach, it was abandoned many years ago. And of course, some people people think that what should we have as an alternative, and in a way Bitcoin is the better option, because firstly it is like security, and then it is probably the most hard money and sound money which we can imagine, because you can't just go and print a lot of bitcoins. Many people would like to do it, but it's not possible. Well, back in the 2009 it was possible to mine on the computer, but now for many years it needs like a lot of investment, and maybe this investment is compared to the investment in gold mine. What I want to ask you, what do you think, like what other authors whom we mentioned, what is their interesting contribution in the economic science compared like to crypto? I think what's like relevant, maybe ideas, approaches, because first one which I mentioned, sound money, is one of the major issues, and what else, what can we name?
I would suggest to talk the wider than just the money aspect. First time in human history, the blockchain technology took the two main features of the material world we live in. The first is scarcity, which creates value, and the second is impossibility of double spending. If I had an apple and I had given the apple to you, I have no apple and you have an apple. It's quite understandable. So in fiat money system, if I have a dollar and I give it to bank, I still have dollar, and the bank have a dollar, bank has dollar, and he gives interest credit. So dollar starts to have two masters, and then third, that's one of the main reasons why the fiat system is false counterfeiting.
And we can't verify, for example, bank deposits, are they like secured by the real money? And this is like what happens when the financial crisis arises, that when there is some kind of panic or information, and a lot of people, they come to banks to withdraw their funds, then the banks crash.
Yes, and that term bank multiplier, the euphemism bank multiplier, any student of economics faculty knows, it means that bank system just simply multiplies the masters of one fiat dollar, ruble, so on and so forth, and that creates instability. So let's return to my answer. So the blockchain technology, first time in human history, moved this two main feature, scarcity and impossible double spending, into the digital virtual world. And the term virtual asset or digital asset had appeared. That means that these assets, this a really new world of economics, where money just one function, one part of the roles this digital asset may play. What I want to say, that the blockchain technology creates a new world where the majority of humanity may refound themselves in the brand new rules. And what's the magic of economic theory? And the Austrian School of Economics is the synonym of the economic theory, because the laws of economics theory, they work because they are related to the subjectivism, to the real people, to human agents. And there is no matter what assets people use, real assets or virtual assets, they value them subjectively. They trade them, they exchange them subjectively. The values, the laws of value are the same. Technologies change, but the laws of economics stay the same. That's why the economics theory, or Austrian economics, it is the very necessary science everybody should learn, like physics, like math, like chemistry, because this is the science of people's economical behavior.
there is even this like term praxeology.
Definitely.
And that's interesting. Like the notion of value is also one of the topics which Mises wrote a lot about it. So he took like economics like as a science not only of math and formulas of economic history, but the science
quite the opposite. No math, no formulas, no homo economicus, just real world, subjectively, logic, praxeology. Economics is for logics. If you read Mises, it is, how to say, I don't even have the word. It's the magic for logically thinking man. It's like a heaven. You do understand clearly everything. It is, no matter what specific economist we are talking about, Menger, Hayek, or Mises, or Rother, because they are all founded on the same ground, the logic, the praxeology, the science. If you wanna very radical thinking, read Rothbard. If you wanna read classic logical thinking, read Mises. If you wanna read so-called social philosophy, not so radical, very, very flexible, read Hayek. If you want to read about money and Bitcoin, read Amos. And if you want to learn how the Austrian school started, read Menger, because that's the history.
I will also add one interesting contemporary author, Hans Hermann Hoppe.
Definitely,
yes. He's an interesting personality, and I hope that maybe someday we will meet and we'll be able to record interview with him. And any other like contemporary scholars or some other authors whom we didn't mention yet?
That's a good question. I have already mentioned the Mises Institute in Alabama, yes. Yeah. The great constellation of the modern Austrian economists, they are totally related to the Mises Institute in Alabama. They are Walter Block, Joseph Salerno, Hans Hermann Hoppe, and many other men, Tom Woods. Just visit Mises.org and find the economist you like more. Annually, they do such a thing like Mises University. This is 30 or 40 lectures read by modern Austrian school economists, and on the basis of Mises Institute in Alabama, in Auburn, Alabama. They cover all the topics from the beginning of the praxeological basis to even cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, of course, because sound money is the logical part of Austrian school. The theory of money is a logical part. And the example of sound money, like Bitcoin, of course, it is included, and they try to explore this phenomena of Bitcoin and blockchain from the academic perspective, from the scientific, economical perspective. That's why I strictly recommend not even to read books, but if you are a visual man, if you like YouTube like we to like, visit Mises.org and visit the famous YouTube channel Mises Media. You can find our lectures.
By the way, as a YouTuber and you also do a lot of interviews and programs, do you often bring, and you do it like mostly in Russian language, yes, or in English also sometimes?
The majority, the 80% of them are in Russian language, and 20% of them are in English.
Do you often bring like these economical topics in your content? Because we'll leave a link to your channels.
You've mentioned the main mission. Why am I in the cryptocurrency space? Because this is the best way for me to promote economic education and Austrian school in the area and in the realm where the people are ready for that. It is very hard to promote economic education. Just talk to the people on the street. Do you know economics? Are you interested in it long ago? Go away. And if you talk with the crypto guys, do you understand that the money role of Bitcoin is explored by the Austrian economics? It is the close connection, and that's why I'm here. I am natively promoting Austrian School of Economics and the crypto space by my mission. First, I'm an economist. When I introduce myself, first I say I'm an Austrian School economist, then I'm a public person, and I'm seeing an interviewer at the crypto space and the Cryptoemcee, because the Cryptoemcee is like a, how to say, like a horse which drives my my horse cabin. Horse cabin is Austrian economics and crypto like that I found this conjunction, this components to promote Austrian economics at the first.
What do you think about like an idea to make a conference on the topic of crypto and Austrian School of Economics, or more like on the economical approach, but it will be directed also towards like crypto companies, and there will be like a tech section, but the main section will be economical. Let's say maybe after the quarantine we can maybe find Kiev as a location, because why not, when the flights will happen? Kiev is a good city with a lot of people interested in crypto space.
You've just repeated the main idea we discussed with Lviv guys, Volodymyr Kretinsky. A couple of weeks ago I started my Ukrainian presence in Lviv, the city I've never been, and I first visited Lviv, spent a great week there. So the memorial plate or memorial wall of Mises on the Street in Lviv, and we discussed with Lubomir Pavlyuk, with Volodymyr Kretinsky, the idea of creating the annual event in Lviv dedicated to Mises, because thousands of enthusiasts, crypto enthusiasts and Austrian School of Economics enthusiasts in the world, they dream to visit the place where Mises was born, and this place is Lviv, and Lviv should inevitably have its annual event dedicated to Mises, cryptocurrency, like theory and practice. And I totally convinced that these guys will create this event, because they are dreaming about that, and I will join their team and will help to promote this event, to participate. So I definitely agree that the Ukraine, Kiev, Lviv and other cities, they need to have their one crypto event related to Austrian economics, because the place of birth of the Austrian economics.
Yeah, and you know, Lviv is also like very popular tourist city, and it's known for a lot of like cafes, bars, restaurants. And many of them are like really conceptual, with the concept, with the topic. And cafes as a notion is interesting because in the early last period of Austro-Hungarian Empire in Austria, there were like a lot of cafes and they were the places where the work of both like artists and economics took place. A lot of discussions took place there. If I'm not mistaken, Mises was also frequent visitor when he lived in Vienna of those cafes. And there is, for example, in Lviv there is like Mazach cafe dedicated to Leopold von Sacher-Masoch. And to Lviv guys I gave an idea, why don't you create a Mises cafe? So cafe focused on the economics and focused on the personality of Mises, which will also have like all of his books published in English, but also in other languages, which will have like photos, you know, this kind of memorial things and aspects, maybe some pictures. It can be designed like in the style of cafes which existed in the times of Austrian Empire, Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the cafes which resemble Austro-Hungarian Empire, they exist in Lviv, in Chernivtsi. So I gave like this idea because it's not something which requires a lot of investment. And back in the 2017, when I said this idea, some people in the crypto space, they bought like Lambos and all these things. So why don't somebody, and I give this idea also to the viewers, because who knows, maybe let's say Roger Ver or some other people will watch it and say like, why don't I do it? Because it's well, the this type of business is not the business where you can expect huge profits, but if you combine it with education, this is something worth.
So I know that Roger Ver is a big fan of Austrian economics. We talked to him a couple times when he was my speaker in the conferences. And so Roger, if you do want to establish something related to Austrian economics, the Ukraine is the best place, Lviv or Kiev is the best country for doing that, because Austrian school was born here.
Yeah, and for that conference which will happen in Lviv, so we are inviting Roger, we are inviting like another famous person who is interested in these topics from Bitcoin Cash community, Mark Demezel, interesting investor, and he's big supporter of Cash, is crypto blogging platform, and we invite like everyone who's interested in such topics to come as a speaker, maybe as a visitor, or maybe a sponsor. So do you think this conference might happen like next year?
I think definitely yes, because these guys from Lviv, Amir, and you and me personally, we are definitely ready to do that, and I really think that after this quarantine and pandemic disaster, the borders will be open, and this annual event, might have happened in 2021 in Lviv, dedicated to Mises, to Austrian economics, to crypto from the theoretical side, from the practical side, because the crypto is the phenomena which is definitely the example of the theoretical thinking of the Austrian economics. Because all the human life is the practical example of theoretical approaches of Austrian school.
Yeah, great. I think we spoke enough for today. We gave like the information, reading list, information for the thinking, and if we see that the audience is interested in this topic more, I invite you for the future interviews and future talks, be it in this format as Cryptoemcee or in another format, and we're inviting everyone to comment, to let know your opinion. So thanks, have a good day.
Thank you very much, Andrea, and thank you very much, viewers. Just subscribe, share, and ask your questions and comments if you are interested in learning of Austrian School of Economics, and if you are the crypto enthusiast. So stay crypto and learn Austrian economics. It's very necessary science, very necessary knowledge, and